Wait a second. It's not him, it's him.
Oh my god, guys, I'm getting the best book today. Don't procrastinate like me.
I don't know why I'm getting a little emotional right now.
It's weighing on me.
70,950 words. Let's do it. Hello everyone and welcome back to Grayson's Bookmark. Here on this channel I make all types of writing and bookish content, and today is the last video I will film in 2021. Today I'm bringing you some bookish content, a part 2 to a video I made earlier in the year around August, and that took a really long time to film and a really long time to edit, so I've changed the format a little bit. I'm going to get through the rest of the books I've read this year, still using my ranking system that I made. Poor little chart. It needs a little repair, needs a little patch, and if you want to watch that previous ranking video, it was very thorough. That will be linked in either the cards or the description. Is that enough exposition? I hope so. Let's get into it. So I read 25-ish books in the second half of this year, and that surprises me because honestly, the second half of this year was much busier than the first half of the year. So anyway, starting us off in the not for me category, this is the book just wasn't for me. Didn't like it. These books are currently in the not for me category, and joining them will be is sadly Madame Bovary. This is a classic book. I really wanted to like it. It just made me so frustrated. Like, the characters, a little insane. I'm glad I read it because now I know what it's about, but didn't live up to its expectations. Next is The Sky Between You and Me. Used bookstore sticker still attached. I read this book in one day. That's something. Never done that before. This book is all in verse, like short poems. So it went by really quickly. I can't say that it was a good read. It was on my shelf for a while and it was bothering me that I'd never read it. Turns out it's a horse girl book, and no shade to horse girls, but that time of my life has passed, and there was also like a eating disorder in this book, and so it was not particularly a pleasant read, so not for me. Moving on up to Didn't Quite Hit. Yes, I know there's tape sticking out of the top of this. I will fix this at some point. These are books that I wanted something more from them, or I was expecting something different and they didn't land in the way I wanted them to. Meh, fine, forgettable. These are currently all the books in this category for 2021. Let's see who's joining them. From here on out, I don't have many more physical books, and generally they are mostly audiobooks. First, I read Solo by Kwame Alexander. I wanted this to be better, and I was interested in it because it had songwriting and music industry trouble. I think it had a full cast. I don't know. I picked it up because I liked Daisy Jones and the Six, but it was a very short book. There was singing in it. It went in a weird place, and it just didn't quite hit. Next is Fallow's Fair by Hannah Capin, which is actually being renamed to Golden Boys Beware. It's a Macbeth retelling. There's lots of murder. It's very twisted. I wasn't fully gripped. Like, the murdering was not like quite justified. I was missing some suspension of disbelief. Next is Ace of Spades by, and I'm gonna look this up. A great thing you can do is, if you don't know how to pronounce an author's name, go to your library and listen to a sample of the audiobook, and it will be pronounced for you.
Ace of Spades by Farida Abike-Imede.
Farida Abike-Imede. I have no qualms with this book. The plot was good. It was just not what I was expecting when I opened it. I thought it was going to be a thriller, and it was more of a uncovering of a mystery, and that mystery had a lot to do with like racism and classism and like social eugenics, just really gross stuff. Not that that's a bad thing to read. I just wish I would have been prepared differently, or this book would have had been marketed differently, so I would have known that going into it. Next is A Lat's Away by Darcy Little Badger. This is a forgettable book because I really don't remember what happened when I listened to it. There was a ghost dog, some kind of magic. I think it's a middle grade, and that's why I didn't attach to it. It was okay. I just remember almost nothing, which means it just wasn't a favorite. Moving on, and this is the one I'm most disappointed by in this category, and it's The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. I really wanted to like it. The synopsis seemed like it was going to be a fantasy romance, like a competition book, but it wasn't really that. Like you knew at a certain point how things were going to go, and there was like a countdown towards that, so there was no competition anymore, and just a ton of world building. I got lost, I was confused, there was a lot of characters thrown at you in the beginning. I had to check the side of the library twice. I read this as an ebook, and it was difficult. It was difficult to get through. But moving on, let's leave the negativity behind. Next category begins the positivity train. You know, the books you liked. The Orphan's Wish by Melanie Dickerson. I think this is it's at least the 8th, if not around the 12th book in this series. I've been reading it for a very long time, ever since I was in high school. This was a Aladdin retelling. I like to think that Melanie Dickerson was doing fairy tale retellings like before it was cool, like before it was a trend to do retellings. She was writing the Hackenheim series, and this is like a very late book in the series, and I've read them all. Next is The Wandering Inn Book 1. This is not really a book, it's a web serial. This would go higher up in the list if it weren't for how long it took me to read it, but yes, it was a good time. I've been told that the writing does get a lot better in future volumes of The Wandering Inn. If I ever get to the second one, at least I have that to look forward to. There were like 8 books in the series, something ridiculous. Next is These Violent Delights by, this is the one author I didn't look up. Is it Chloe Gong? Aha! It's Chloe Gong. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. Very original, set in Shanghai. There is a mysterious disease going on, sweeping both the Scarlet Gang and the White Flowers. The second book just came out. I am planning on reading it. The only reason it's in this category instead of the next one is because it was just slow. There was a lot of like non-plot. I got through it. I'm excited to read the second one. I would have liked the pacing to be a little quicker. The Near Witch by V.E. or Victoria Schwab. I don't remember which one it is on this book. It was a good, spooky, autumnal read. Had a good time. You know, good. Next is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. I can't remember much of what it's about. It's Cinderella-ish. There's a Goblin King. There are stakes, romance, kind of a love triangle. It was good, perfectly entertaining. Probably not going to read the second one. Next, now we can move on to when I start getting really excited. These are all the books I currently am recommending from 2021. Although just you wait, there's 2 more tiers above this one. Now let's move on to would recommend. The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. I thought this book was going to make me cry. I didn't cry. It's very unique, very dystopian. I can't remember much about it because I read it as an ebook, but the plot revolves around 2 sisters on the cover, and they're like on like a crash collision course to meeting each other. Like that's obviously where the plot is going. It's a very tricky situation for that to happen. Also in this category is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. This is the sequel to The Gentleman's Guide to, it's on the tip of my tongue, Vice and Virtue. But anyway, that's not the book we're talking about. We're talking about the sequel with his sister, who is canon asexual, who is now on like a pirate mission, and she's going on heist and fighting crime. This book celebrates all different types of femininity. It has the theme of there's more than one way to be a woman. There's a little bit of fantasy in this book, and we see some old characters from the first book. I would recommend. It's a good read. Next is Kate in Waiting by Becky Albertalli. I never got to be a theater kid. I always kind of wanted to be, and this book scratched that itch. This book was very entertaining on my way down a mountain. It distracted me from like the pain in my ankles and in my back, so like it was good. It was a good read. Oh my god, I was so sweaty on that walk down. Yeah, and I just had fun like predicting what was gonna happen with the romance. There were 3 main characters, Kate, Noah, and then I don't remember who the third boy is, but like let's call him Matt. His name is Matt. Kate's friend, I don't remember what his name is. They both are like thirsting after Matt. They try not to make it a competition, but they promise like if one of us falls in love with him, like we gotta be honest. Obviously, something happens with that development, and it's a good read, good drama. You know, a fair ending for the book. There's also a bit about Ella Enchanted. Next is Bird by Bird, and I'm gonna find the author real quick. By Anne Lamott. Bird by Anne Lamott. I took many notes on it because it is a writing advice book. The subtitle, I think, is Some Notes on Writing and Life. It's part writing advice, part memoir. It was very entertaining to listen to. I was never bored. I took some of her advice with a grain of salt because it was written in like either the 80s or the 90s. I'll give you some of my notes that I wrote. Remember to breathe. Jealousy is an occupational hazard. Publication is not going to solve your problems. And don't waste time on people who do not treat you with respect and kindness. Always unsure when I'm in frame and when you can properly see things, but there you go. Yeah, a good book. I would recommend. The audiobook narrator especially does a good job with conveying the tone of the writing well. Would recommend. That's why this category is called this. Next is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I read this just because of book talk. It is, good, as people say it is. Main character is a PhD grad student, so just a little bit older than me, and it was good. And the last book in this category, for now, is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green, and the only reason it isn't higher up in this list is because I haven't finished it yet. I'm listening to the audiobook, and I'm on the 9th hour out of 14. I'm gonna finish it by New Year. Today's December 26th, so I have time. I'm gonna finish it. It's also due in like 9 days, so I gotta finish it. This book is the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which is a good book. It's very poignant. It talks about social media and fame and like pride, letting things go to your head, technology addiction. Yeah, and the second book is, more of that, but also more complicated. So, good. Next category, and I'm afraid that I've not really kept to I need to make this video quick recording, but that's not for you to worry about because I'm going to be the one editing it. Next category is, oh my god, read this, because this is a step above would recommend because it's like the top 10% of books I read this year. I don't remember how many are currently in this category for this year, but I'm assuming it's not that many because I really mean it when I say this. Maybe I don't because there's one category above it. Let's meet our crew. We have Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. It is as good as people say it is. It is based on Arthurian legend. It's set on a college campus. My college campus, in fact, I go to UNC Chapel Hill, and I found it very funny that the main character was describing where things were on that campus. It was kind of like an inside joke. I was like, you don't need to tell me where the well is. like, you don't need to tell me how the quad is. I know. It's just a weird experience that I've never had with a book before. I know sometimes there are books set in my city in North Carolina, so that's a bit cool, but like I've never connected to one as much as I have Legendborn before. Just a college campus is like has its own like flavor to it, and like now there's Arthurian legend and demons and like magic, and it's really good. I think you should seriously read it. No, it's really good. I think you should read it. Also the romance. It went from enemies to question mark? We're gonna find out in the second book. And I knew it. Like you know when you read a book and like at like the 30% mark, it's something, just a little thing happens and you're like, wait a second. It's not him, it's him. That's a good moment, especially when you turn out to be right. It's good, 10 out of 10. Next is Fresh by Margot Wood. It is the only other physical book I have that I read in the second half of 2021. I bought this because in the bookstore I laughed in the aisle and I had to take it with me, and it's about a freshman. It is definitely, it's a new adult book. It's about a college freshman like adjusting to college life and wanting to have a lot of good times. Yeah, Fresh by Margot Wood. It's good. Made me laugh a lot. If you have recently become a college freshman or are about to become a college freshman, I think this could like relieve some anxiety about the whole experience, as well as just give you like a relatable experience to read about. It was really good. Something I realized is that I've been reading more adult fiction or new adult fiction recently, which is good because I'm an adult. Next is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Do I say lesbian fiction? Bisexual fiction? I'm not sure what to call it, but there's a relationship between two women, one who is stuck on a subway car for, you know, a really weird reason that their main character, Erin, is her name Erin? That her main character, Jane? No, Jane is a girl on the train. Erin, I think her name is Erin. I will correct myself if I'm wrong about that. You know, she gets in the habit of meeting Jane on the train, and, you know, like, feelings happen, and lots of chaos ensues. And there's also, like, uncovering the mystery of, like, why Jane is perhaps stuck on the subway car. In case you didn't know, One Last Stop is classified by Google Books as time travel fiction. So there you go. There's a bit of that. There's a bit of that in the book. It was unexpected. I thought I was purely reading a contemporary, but I was pleasantly surprised. Next is the final revival of Opal and Nev. This is an ensemble book, and I read this because I like Daisy Jones and the Six. It's set in a similar time, 1970s-ish, maybe 1960s, but definitely in the 1970s. A band forms, a band falls apart. In the same category is also Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a reread for me. I read these two books very close to each other because I'm working on a project called Project Popstar, which also deals with like music industry stuff, and the main thing I was looking for is how do I treat songs in a book, or how do I treat the vibe of a band, and so these books were good research for that. Okay, now we're coming to the final tier. This tier is God tier. This is the S tier, the double S tier. Like if I was taking books with me to space and I could only take a handful of books, these are the books I would grab. This category is called the No Seriously, Read This. I believe I put The House in the Cerulean Sea, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and The Anthropocene Reviewed. And joining it are two books I quite thoroughly enjoyed. And I will save my favorite for last, starting with my second most favorite, and that is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I was so pleasantly surprised when I read this. This came out quite a few years ago, like I want to say 5, maybe 6 years ago at this point. It's set in the future, and basically the job of Scythe exists, and they are like the reapers of the population, because humanity has evolved to a point where nobody is dying, and there's like nobody has like any purpose, and there's a lot of like respect for these scythes, but also a lot of debate among the scythes, like how this reaping, or no, they don't call it reaping, they call it gleaning, how their gleaning is to be done, and there's lots of conflict about that in the book. And our main characters are Citra and Marcus, or Marco, I think it's Marcus. I will correct myself if I am wrong. They are apprenticed to a scythe, and their job is to become a scythe. At every turn when I was reading this, I kept thinking to myself, how is this going to resolve? I was like, there is no way this can be resolved from this point. But then they kept going. And like the ending, like, good. It works perfectly as a standalone, but I'm definitely going to read the second one in 2022. I think you should seriously read it if you happen to not be reading during that time, or just, just completely missed you. The series is completed, so if you needed something to binge, it's there. Yes, which brings me to the final book on this list, and the point where I'm almost done with this video. I will have statistics next. Here we go. Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. I literally have no faults with this book. Plot, amazing. Drama, amazing. Romance, amazing. Gossip, amazing. Like, it scratched every itch, and it far exceeded my expectations. There was a kind of twist near the end, like a kind of betrayal that I've never read in a book before, and it was just like, It was so satisfying. I would highly recommend this. It might be my favorite fiction book of the year. That might be rude to my Addie LaRue, but I haven't read Addie LaRue in 5 months. So our main character realizes through a note in her mother's book that her father is the crown prince of Japan. And upon realizing this, she sends an email. One domino falls after the other, and suddenly she is living life in the Japanese royal palace. She's learning how to be a princess. She is failing at it miserably and causing a lot of drama. She doesn't feel like she belongs. I teared up a couple times. She's learning how to have a father as well, and learning, acceptance of herself. She feels like too American to be in Japan, but like too Japanese to be in America, and that I could feel how isolated she felt. And the author has done a very good job at portraying this. I checked the library recently, and there's going to be a sequel to this book, and I'm so excited. It's coming out on May 31st next year. It kind of has like a Princess Diaries kind of feel, even though it's been such a long time since I've read that. It did remind me of that vibe. So if you liked that, I think you would really like Tokyo Ever After. And I believe there is only one white character in the book, and he's not even a really important character. It was really refreshing to like see a completely Asian cast. Like, it's just good. You should seriously read it. Throat is so dry. But yes, now let's come to the fun part and let's do the statistics. Okay, final thoughts. I can do this. In total, and I'm reading from my computer here, I have read 10 fantasy books, 13 romance books, although these categories are debatable. So it's my pie chart, so you can't argue. 12 literature/contemporary, 3 classics, 4 nonfiction books, 5 sci-fi, 3 juvenile or middle grade, 3 thrillers, 1 graphic novel, and 1 web serial. And that totals to a whopping 55 books, although I think the answer should be 57, so I don't know what I missed, but I don't have time to fix it. So there we have it. You now have some great book recommendations and a nice chunk of data to analyze me with. Let me know some of your favorite books that you read this year. I am ready to be done. 2021 may have also been a difficult year, but I'm glad that I have discovered 5 favorite books of mine. And I think making this AuthorTube channel it's made me be more aware of what I'm reading and more conscious of them, and to really recognize when I have a favorite book. And I think that's helpful, because if someone asks you for a book recommendation, now I know what to say. Thank you for a great 2021, and I'm looking forward to continuing writing and bookish content in the new year. If you you have any book recommendations for things I should read in 2022, you can leave them in the comments below. If you want to watch how I ended up ranking the first half of this year's books, that will also be in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next year. Bye. Gotta reach. It just needs a little tape. Oh, it's a lot brighter in here now. The Norwich by the Norwich. Okay, I can do it. I can come to the home stretch.